Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. My name is Corey Olsen, the Tolkien Professor. Happy to join you here this evening. And this is session number 124 of Exploring the Lord of the Rings. So first, let me start off by explaining, by asking for your help. Because I have a completely new setup today in all ways. And this, as usual, is completely my children's fault. Actually, in this case, much more directly my children's fault than usual. Indeed, child. I cannot bring my elder son into this. Those of you who follow my son's stream will know from this afternoon. He's been doing a Pokemon stream on Tuesday afternoons. And of course, as those of you who are Pokemon fans will know, Pokemon Sword, the latest new Pokemon generation, I don't even remember what number generation it is, because I am not the Pokemon expert in our family. Anyway, the new game came out this past weekend. So he really wanted to stream the new game, Pokemon Sword, which means he needed to be able to stream from his Nintendo Switch. And this involved purchasing a piece of hardware, which involved then downloading a piece of software, which necessitated me upgrading my operating system, which then forced me to totally change everything about the hardware and software that I use to stream entirely. So this huge chain of events that got thrown into gear as a result of all this. And it was crazy. So, anyway, you will. So I'm a little bit experimenting. It means some of the angles are different because again, all different, pretty much all different hardware. Yeah. Anyway, so that's time for a separate system for him. Yeah, it's one of these days. Okay, good. Thank you, Druid's Fire, for confirming that my audio and video are both good on Twitch. And by the way, you notice that, so since I'm switching to a new piece of software that I'm streaming from, I did this new thing. Do you like it? Right? I've simulated my banner. See, it was the one thing that I disliked about going green screen for these Twitch broadcasts is that I lost my banner, and I really liked my banner, with the Signum logo right behind my head like a medieval halo, with the little eagle hovering over my head. Well, right, I'm like, okay, let me see if I can let me see if I can replicate that. So there we go. I was playing with that. My camera frame is kind of weird. Oh boy, is it ever, Rinroos. Absolutely. Yeah, real weird. But hey, again, it's odd. It's even stranger on the Twitter feed, which is all in a different angle and stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to fix it here a little bit better. Anyway, it's all different. It's all kind of weird. Yeah. Anyway, it's all very interesting. So, again, please do let me know if you have any issues with seeing or hearing things, because it seems to me that little could be more likely than that there would be some trouble with that. So, okay. All right. Then assuming everything is carrying on okay, I'm going to move forward. So, what was I talking about? Yes. Edith Aldora was saying on Twitch that my son is a chip off the old block. He kind of is. Yeah, he's definitely the one who is most like me in my family, personality-wise. And I've been quite enjoying his streams. Actually, he's really he's pretty active on his streams. So anyway. Okay, Oh yeah, he does. So those of you who are interested, his show, which is called the Pokemon Discovery Project, airs at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. So that's when it airs live on Twitch. But of course, you can also find it on his YouTube channel, which is under his name, his streaming name, The Rambunctious Riolu. So there you go. No, JJ, this does not mean I'll have an episode where I sing the entire stream, because I do not have my son's stamina for that, nor a fraction of his skill in percussion, which was by far my favorite part of the musical episode that he did. Yeah, he ended up doing for stream number 13. He ended up starting a spontaneous song, which he then maintained for the last 50 minutes of his hour-long show. It was I was cracking up. Anyway, it's all good. So let's keep moving forward here, because tonight is a big night. Because tonight we are going. Now I'm going to go ahead and say it. Tonight we are going to finish chapter 1 of book 2. That's it. I'm calling it. We are getting to the end of the chapter tonight. 3 slides. That's it. 3 slides and we're done. So there we go. Christopher says, so I have a question about Weathertop. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. All right, wise persons. But first, before we do, I don't have rather than addressing a question for tonight, I wanted to do something else, which was something that I should have done a long time ago, but I keep getting distracted and forget it, because I've always been very forgetful. And I'd say it was my old age, except that's another way in which my son is like me. But anyway, okay, so what we're gonna what I wanted to bring to your attention is, of course, the episode summary. So this is many thanks to Tony Mead for starting this initiative. Tony approached me about this a little while back, and he was, because we had remember I'd mentioned this before in a previous class, that as I think this was around when we were finishing with book 1, and I was saying, several people have mentioned that we are that it would be really good to do a book, right? It would be really good to publish something from this. And there's certainly lots and lots and lots of wonderful material, lots of wonderful discussion that we have had. And I'm very interested in this. I think it would be fun to do, as a sort of community project, to be working together to make something, to sort of publish something out of our discussions here. Because I don't have time right now to sit down and write Exploring the Lord of the Rings. I wish I did, but I don't. And anyway, here we are, right? Having these discussions every week. I don't have time to sit down and write the book, but I do have time to continue our discussions week by week, right? So the idea, therefore, was, when I was talking, so Tony emailed me and was like, hey, I'd like to help with this. What could we do? And I said, well, the very first step, right? If I were going to sit down and write a book based on this, the very first thing that I would do is go through and make notes, like outlines of the stuff that we said, the conversations that we had in the classes, because again, there's so much great material there. First, we need to kind of gather all that together in a form that's going to be usable, right? That we could then sort of shape and work on from there. So the first step that Tony began then, and has begun on his own, is to do episode summaries. So let me show you where those are if you wanted to pitch into this, because this is something that really could be a community project. So if you go to the forums, so this of course many of you go, this is where you come to ask questions for Narnian, but of course we made a separate little sub forum for the episode summaries that Tony has begun here. So if you look through, these are just listed, of course, in order, right? And he's up and done 25 now. So you just look at session 25, which he most recently finished, and you'll see he's kind of going on based on topics and just bullet points under each of the sort of major like sections of the text or sort of discussions that we had. This is, it's not like, this is not a transcription. We don't want a transcription. A transcription would be way too unwieldy, right? But just a little summary, right? Bullet points from, the discussion that we had, things that I said, things that you guys contributed. And so we've got all of this really good material to go through. So the next step, of course, will be kind of sorting things out and putting things together. And you're right, Lady Schmebulik, this would be a very long book. JJ, that was exactly my thought. And that's why I was really beginning to think about this after we finished The Flight to the Ford. Because, we are going to need to be thinking about this on a book-by-book basis. What makes most sense to me is to see, is there something that we can build? I would want this to be sort of a 6-volume thing, right, as we go through The Lord of the Rings. And it'll take a while, but see, fortunately, we have a while, right? So it'll be good. Anyway, so I just wanted to draw your attention to this project, and I think, so if you guys are interested, if any of you are interested in sort of helping to continue to move this along and to bring us to the next phase of compiling things and organizing thoughts and things, we can do that. I would, but of course the first step is to complete these summaries. I think this is a great initiative that Tony did. And again, many thanks to Tony for his initiative in starting out with this. And I think he's got some wonderful models for how to do this. So again, they're right here in the forum, so anybody can pitch in to help out with this. So anyway, just wanted to draw your attention to that and commend those to you. We'll see where we can go from here, but this is the first step. So, okay. Excellent. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Tony, for starting that out, and for bearing with me. Again, he and I talked about this a long time ago, and I've been meaning to mention it and talk about it in class for goodness, a long time, and I keep forgetting about it, getting distracted, and anyway, so I finally remembered to talk about it and to thank Tony for it, and invite you guys to join in on this collaboration, because it should be a lot of fun. Okay. Now, let us get back to the text. Here we go. So, we just had the poem, right? So we finished the Aelbereth Gilthoniel poem last time. And now we resume prose and English. Frodo halted for a moment, looking back. Elrond was in his chair, and the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. Near him sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. They spoke together, and then suddenly it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him, and the light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. He stood still enchanted, while the sweet syllables of the elvish song fell like clear jewels of blended word and melody. "It is a song to Elbereth," said Bilbo. "They will sing that and many other songs of the Blessed Realm, many times tonight. Come on." Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Dorward is reminding me. I forgot the announcements. Yeah. Not too many announcements tonight. The primary announcement is that Baymouth. Yeah, that was the one I meant to mention. Yes, Baymouth. This coming weekend, we're getting together in Berkeley, California on Saturday, the 23rd of November. Join me if you're anywhere nearby. Come join me. There's still time to register. Just go to signumuniversity.org, scroll down to the Baymouth event page there. There's a little tile for the Baymouth event page, and then the registration link is right there. So please do join us for that. Okay. All right. Back to our text. That's it. That was the only announcement I wanted to do, but I did forget it. So thanks, Sharon. All right. Let's focus first on Frodo's experience there on the threshold, right? Having heard the Aelbereth Gilthoniel song. And then in the second And then we'll look at Bilbo's reaction, right, in the second paragraph there. So Frodo halts for a moment and looks back. Remember, he's just crossed the threshold, so they've just left the room. So he's in the doorway of the room, right, looking back through across the threshold into the Hall of Fire. And we see Elrond in his chair. This is one of the first times we've had a direct description of Elrond since the beginning when they processed in, right? And the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. As kind as summer, he is called in the Revised Hobbit, right? As kind as Christmas he is in the first edition of the Hobbit, but as kind as summer in the Revised Hobbit. And so that means, by the way, that I believe this simile predates it, right? So when Tolkien wrote the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees, it was still kind as Christmas in the Hobbit, and it was only in the years after the Lord of the Rings was published that he then changed it. So if one reference influenced the other, it's the other way around, right? It's this that influenced the Hobbit reference to summer rather than the other way around. But that little glimpse of Elrond, the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. I'm not quite sure what to make of that exactly. So first of all, the fact that it's summer light, right? It really emphasizes that the sort of the I don't know, like the eternal summer, right, of Elrond's life, right, of the elvish existence. It's not, he's not autumnal, right? This is not winter. It's not Christmas, right? It's not in the middle of winter. And yes, WKU, I agree. The hyphenated word summerlight does suggest at least the possibility that phrase is a specific concept, right? Yeah. I'm tempted to kind of be drawing parallels, right? Like that is Elrond's face. The parallel is, the fire is like the summer sun and his face is like the trees, right? So he is not being compared to the light of summer as he is in the Hobbit simile, right? Instead, the firelight on his face is like, somehow, the summer light upon the trees. And exactly how is what I'm trying to sort out, right? I don't think this can be simply a visible metaphor, right? Kurtzimus, I agree, the gold-green haze seen through the trees in old forests is just what I picture too. But I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that picture. So, what's that like? Literally, like the firelight on his face? So it can't be like the light filtering through the trees because we're talking about the light on his face. So, yeah. So again, I'm trying to figure out exactly what is being conveyed by the simile here, right? A simile compares one thing to another thing. What is Elrond being compared to exactly here? I don't think the point of the metaphor or the point of the simile is to say Elrond is like a tree when it has sun on it. Like that doesn't even make any sense, right? I don't think it can be that. But yeah, Matt, I agree. That's the first thing that struck me. So Matt says that, it's the odd thing to him is that it's summer when everyone thinks of the elves as in the autumn of their time in Middle-earth, which is true. And he says this is a good reminder that even if they are leaving these shores and diminishing, they will still be a part of Middle-earth. Yeah, I agree. That's what struck me most too, that it was summer instead of autumn or something like that. Instead of getting a glimpse of, the waning of the elves or something like that, what Frodo is being struck by here is rather, again, the like eternal noon of the lifetime of the elves, right? The eternal noon of the year, right? In the summer light. So I agree. That was really striking to me as well. Yeah, good. Mad Violinist says that it is said that summer still lingered in Elrond's gardens, or at least it will be said soon. We haven't quite gotten to that yet. Yes, exactly. So that idea of the lingering of summer, even when other things are fading, that's that seems like an appropriate metaphor for for elvish stuff, right? But yeah, again, he's not being. I mean, the summer is relevant. And as I said, Matt, I was struck by that same thing, but it doesn't explain it. At least it doesn't explain the whole thing, right? Because clearly, he's not being compared to the light. The fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. So Fourth Dauntless is making some interesting suggestions. He was just saying that summer light nourishes trees. Perhaps the firelight in stories nourish Elrond and restore his strength. Yeah, are we supposed to, like... Yeah. So for Thomas, I'm thinking in that direction too. Maybe not quite as literally as that, but... Okay, just as a tree in its full green foliage, right, is sort of... I don't know, it's like home, its natural place is under summer sun, right? So Elrond, like, this is Elrond's natural place, if that makes any sense. Wow, did I explain that badly? Let me try that again. Elrond, like, again, what we're getting a glimpse of, and remember the frame, by which I mean literally the frame of Frodo's vision, like in the doorway. He is outside and he's looking through the doorway and he is seeing Elrond from a distance in the Hall of Fire, right? And seeing the light from the fire on the face of Elrond, and seeing the light from the fire in, if we are correct, the center of the room, shining on the face of Elrond as he sits in his special chair. I just made an assumption that it was special, but anyway, it's called his chair, so I'm thinking it's a little bit special. But anyway, as Elrond is in his chair with the fire in his face, Frodo is, for some reason, reminded of summer light upon the trees, right? Yeah. So what I was trying to get at super clumsily before, sort of inspired, Fourth Dauntless, by your comments there, is that Elrond, like, it's not that Elrond is being compared to the summer light, nor exactly even that he's being compared to a tree, but rather the sort of the relationship, the fitness between the summer sun and the tree in the fullness of its strength and foliage. Those things are associated together, just as Elrond and the Hall of Fire are associated together, right? The two of them, they fit each other in the same way. And so I think in this way, Elrond is, of course, being compared to the tree. But again, the image that we have, we shouldn't be imagining him with his leaves brown and wilting and falling, right? Nor should we imagine him barren of leaves, nor even should we imagine him budding and flowering. He is like a tree in summer, right? Exactly. We should imagine Elrond with leaves, JJ. That's exactly it, right? So he is being compared to a tree in the fullness of its strength under the open light of the sun, right? And that's, of the summer sun. Yeah. So yeah, good. Several of you, Kimber and Mike and Fourth Dauntless, are thinking about the nourishing of the tree by the summer sun, right? Because it's not a coincidental relationship, right? It's not an accidental correlation between, or merely some kind of association between the tree and the fullness of its foliage and strength and the summer sun, right? There's a causal relationship there. So is it implying a kind of a causal relationship here? He is the lore master, right? Is part of me suspects. I know, of course, like in Lotro, in the game, Elrond has his study, right? And that's his place. You always go to Elrond's study, and that's where you find him when you're looking for him in the game. But I think this simile suggests to me that the heart of Elrond's power in Middle-earth, right? The heart of his life, that the core of his existence here in Middle-earth is here in the Hall of Fire. This is his place. This is his center. You know, that's what I, it's the best I got. It's the best I got. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's exactly, Mad Violinist. It's the heart of Elrondom in Middle-earth. Absolutely. That's exactly it. Yeah. Forthon was saying this now seems a disturbing parallel with the Samoth Naur. Well, yeah, it is, except good instead of evil, right? I mean, I think, you know, just as, you know, Galadriel has her place with her mirror, and I mean, that seems to me a kind of a normal thing, right? The association of a particular place with, right, you know, I mean, obviously Tom Bombadil's got a place. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I was just noticing people on the Twitch chat talking about Pac-Man. I think that's some kind of a relic of the software that I'm using. I have no idea how to make that not happen. But yeah, that's, sorry. It is my son's fault, but only indirectly. Anyway, okay. Good. So, yeah. Ray Burns, I think that there is a parallel that we'll see later with Galadriel. I don't know that we'll get a comparison like this, because, you know, there are two places in Lothlorien that are clearly significant, right? One, of course, is her mirror, and the place that she takes Frodo and Sam to, where her mirror is, right? But secondly, of course, there's Caren Emroth, which is called the Heart of Elvendom on Earth, which we'll talk about when we get there, because there'll be a lot to talk about that. Anyway, but Ambrosius Aurelianus, I think that that's really interesting too. Aragorn appears very elven here, he says, but he stands while Arwen and Elrond sit. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, near him sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone upon his breast. So yes, he's standing next to Arwen. He doesn't have a seat next to Arwen, right? Mad Violinist, I really like that. You know, he says that Aragorn, even here, is not permitted to be at rest, right? Yeah, I think that's interesting. Turambar of many names, excellent Twitch handle, or Discord handle, says Aragorn standing makes him look more like a guard than a friend. Yes, I don't know about guard exactly, but more like a servant, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Fourth Dauntless. That's just what I was thinking. Aragorn is waiting on Elrond and Arwen, somewhat like what's about Sam wishing to wait on Frodo, right? Yes, exactly. He is more like an attendant. That's exactly right, Iwindillian. That's exactly right. So he's standing. So he's not seated. So yes, it's true that he's not joined the family, but I don't even know. I don't even know that he. I don't even know that he does want to sit. Like, you know, if they were married right now, would he sit? I don't. In this house, I doubt he would. You know, in this house with Elrond seated there, I think he would stand. But you know, that's just a theory. Not really sure. So yeah, Gogunthir is asking, is this humility from Aragorn or chivalry? Yeah. Yeah. Well, too old not to. I know he grew up there. I'm not saying he's not comfortable at Rivendell. I'm not saying he's. It's not about that, right? What it is about showing honor to Elrond, especially here, right? And Arwen, right? I mean, come on, he would rather stand next to Arwen than sit next to anybody else, right? And I get that seems to me totally appropriate. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Kit wonders if anyone else gets a chair. I don't know that they do, right? I mean, there's a few stools, remember, but yeah, JJ is noticing that he just happened to be in his freshly polished elven mail when he ran into Arwen. Yeah, funny how that happened. Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Nahor asks a wonderful question, and somebody look this up. We should be able to find, those of you who have electronic texts should be able to help us with this. And the question is this the first time that the narrator refers to him as Aragorn? Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. It might well be. It might well be. I'm trying to think. I mean, of course, the name was only mentioned a couple of times. He was routinely referred to as Strider, not only by the hobbits, but by the narrator as well, through the second half of Book 1. Yeah. Somebody help me with that. Because I'm not sure, but it's an interesting theory. And if so let's proceed on the assumption that it's true, and we'll confirm it. Lady Schmebiowak asks why the sudden change. I think it's the location. You remember that how he doesn't look like Strider anymore. I think it would be inappropriate, in a sense, to refer to him. Now, one thing that has changed, Lincoln, exactly as you say, is Frodo now knows, right, that Aragorn is Dunedain, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Zephin 12 confirms it. Confirmed first use by narrator. Excellent. Okay, so on the one hand, it could be a reflection of Frodo's knowledge, but I think it's clearly more than that, right? Because notice, of course, of him we get of him we get a description, right? Unlike when we get a simile for Elrond, we get nothing for Arwen, which is okay because we had a bunch of her before, right? And then we get a description. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. Okay, so we get a description of the appearance of Aragorn. He certainly does not look like Strider, that disreputable character, right? That rogue, even, that he was pretending to be, right? That he was modeling himself as in Bree. So we're going to get a couple other moments like this when Aragorn is going to sort of transform, right? And it's not that like he performs some kind of transformation. It's about what the Hobbit narrator sees when he looks at him, right? And clearly when Frodo is looking there through the frame of the doorway, right, with Elrond and Arwen and now Aragorn standing beside them, this is not Strider standing beside them. It's clearly Aragorn. Yeah. See, I don't... it could be, of course, that... it could be a sign of a different narrator, right? Like, as Bricktail suggests, perhaps Strider is what Frodo calls him, but Findakill is the one who refers to him as Aragorn. But I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that even Frodo would use different names. I mean, he has different names. It's not, and the different names mean different things, right? It's not just that, you know, when we couldn't only be guided by the fact that Frodo thinks of him one way, right, as Strider, his friend, and, you know, Finnegill thinks of him as, the king. Yeah. Exactly. As JJ says, that's why you have different names, because they mean different things. Yeah, good. Let's move on to the point. Good. Zephin was just pointing this out. Fourth Dauntless was saying before, was asking the question before, is he really dressed in elven mail? Is that happening? Is that true? Right? Because, I mean, look, it says his dark cloak was thrown back and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. And Zephin was saying, what's with all the seeming that happens here? Later on in the next sentence, it's going to seem to Frodo that Arwen turns toward him, right? So is this stuff really happening, or is this stuff just seeming to happen? Is he having like a little vision of Aragorn here? Is Aragorn as he truly is being unfolded to Frodo in a kind of vision? Or not? Or is he actually dressed in elven mail? In which case, why does it say he seemed to be clad in elven mail? It could just be, right, as Rococo says, maybe Frodo as narrator is just assuming that what he's wearing is indeed elven mail, like he's not 100% sure if elves actually made that mail or not. He's definitely dressed in mail, right? It's absolutely mail. Seems like it might be elven mail. And it seems like a star shines on his breast. That's probably not literally true, right? I mean, I assume, you know, like there's not like a star literally on Aragorn's breast, right? So that second one is definitely a metaphor, you'd think, right? Yeah. It could be a star fashioned out of metal, shining, right? Because it could be shiny, like a nice silver star. It could be a brooch. It could be a gem, right? Which is shining. Which that would be my particular guess. Yeah. Rakentia is paraphrasing, the way the firelight glints off him, it looks like he's wearing elven mail with a star shining on his breast, but it's hard to tell for sure from this angle. It could be something as simple as that. Yeah, Fourth Dauntless says Aragorn is later going to wear a gleaming jewel around his neck, and we will later see a star seem to shine upon his brow. I break toward a vision of some kind. Yeah, that, and when we say vision of some kind, I don't mean that Frodo is seeing something that isn't there. In a sense, of course, it's the opposite to that, right? He's seeing what truly is there, what is hidden by appearances, right? Here's the reason that I lean towards gem upon the breast. I'm thinking about upon his breast an emerald from Bilbo's poem. You know, that line that Aragorn insisted that Bilbo put in. And now here we see him with the star shining upon his breast. So we had those two gems, those two significant gems, right, which our attention was drawn to in the poem. One, the emerald, our attention drawn to it by what Bilbo said about Aragorn's contribution, right, with the green stone on his breast, and the other, of course, the Silmaril that gets bound upon his brow, to which our attention is drawn by the fact that it's enormous, shiny, and turns into a star. So we've got the two things kind of combine into the star that seems to shine on the breast of Eärendil as it was shining. Wasn't it shining on the breast of Elwing, right, as she was coming in? Yeah. So again, it seems to me that what Frodo is seeing seems to me to be non-coincidentally connected to the description of Eärendil from the poem that Frodo and we just heard, right? So that Frodo, in looking at Aragorn, he's looking at him now in a new context, right? No longer Strider. He now sees him as Aragorn, sees him as the Dunedain, right? Sees him as Elrond, Arwen, Aragorn, right? Clad in elven mail with a star shining on his breast. And in this, it's possible that Frodo is like Frodo's mind, Frodo's heart is showing him something that his eyes are not in fact seeing, right? Is Aragorn wearing something sparkly and shiny on his chest? He might well be, right? But that doesn't seem to me to be the really important thing, right? And it's possible, right, that the word seems there. The word seems is there to draw our attention to sort of the uncertainty. In other words, what we're getting here, like the signal that word seems would then be making is what we're getting here might not just be a physical description. This is not just, and here are the clothes that Aragorn was wearing now, right? But this is a glimpse that Frodo is getting into what he really is now. And yes, Fourth Dauntless, you're right that we know that Frodo is going to develop the ability to see things that are hidden from others. Absolutely. He's going to get Galadriel with that one, right? When he gets to Lothlorien, it is certainly possible that he is developing a glimmer of that capacity here. Yeah, that seems to me very, very possible. Okay, good. Matthew Herschenroder says, and Nahor 90210 was also saying that the text is going to switch from calling Aragorn Strider, the narrator is going to switch from that to almost exclusively calling him Aragorn from now on. The hobbits will still address him as Strider. But the narrator is going to call him Aragorn almost all the time after now. That's really interesting, right? He's graduated. And that certainly seems to correlate with Frodo's knowledge, right? Now Frodo knows who he is. Yeah. Rayburns asks, is this a coincidence that all this happens after the song to Elbereth? I don't think it's a coincidence, right? Having heard the song and having listened to the song and kind of looked back with longing through the threshold, this is what Frodo sees, right? Frodo sees this vision of first of Elrond and then of Arwen and then of Aragorn together. And, what's the cause and effect? I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm suggesting that Elbereth is sort of answering the hymn, the invocation of her, by granting this kind of insight, right? Perhaps insight would be a better word to use than vision, because vision suggests something a little bit more kind of narrative, perhaps. But yeah. Yeah, they hear a song of Faerie as they are standing on the threshold of Faerie, Valamoinen says. Yes, and then he looks and he sees his old friend transformed, and again, transformed in once more a model that we've seen, the elven male with the star shining. The elven male, too, is like Eärendil, right? Remember what happened to Eärendil, right? When he gets to Valinor, right? Gets all pimped out, and there is Aragorn, all pimped out with the star shining on his breast. So Aragorn becomes visibly a kind of fulfillment of, connected back to Eärendil. As remember, Christopher, I think you were the one who was reminding us a couple weeks back that was the reference to Eärendil that we got before. It was Aragorn who first brought up Eärendil as one of his forefathers, right? And Flammifer, as you were reminding us last week or week before last, it has not been explicitly said yet in the text that Elrond is Eärendil's son. We don't know that yet. We do know for sure, though, that Aragorn is descended from Eärendil. So that connection seems to be one of the things that the text is very, very clearly playing on there in this description. Should we see a contrast between Aragorn and Elrond as descendants of Eärendil on different paths? Very interesting. I don't see a contrast here. There's nothing in these descriptions, in the simile that were given of Elrond and the details were given of Aragorn here, that suggests to me a separation, right? So I don't think, I mean, of course, it works that way, right, in some ways, but I don't see the text suggesting that. Yeah, interesting. Fourth Dauntless is saying Frodo has just woken up from a coma where he passed very close to the other side, right? Or he was almost entirely on the other side, as Gandalf says. Is his perception of both Elrond and Aragorn in this paragraph a relic of that experience? He's seeing both as they are on the other side? Well, Fourth Dauntless, I don't think that idea is that crazy at all. We were talking about somebody, I forget who already, was referring to Frodo's perceptiveness. Yeah, Fourth Dauntless, it was you. Fourth Dauntless' ability to see things that are hidden, right? I think that's what's happening here, right? He's able to see things that are concealed from others, like Galadriel's ring, right? Because he has not... Remember, only in Valinor is he going to be here. Remember that wonderful discussion that we had about the other side and about the ring drawing a mortal to the other side, right? And the kind of unnatural state of that existing on both sides at once in ways that they're not really supposed to. He's been healed, mostly. But remember, he's not totally healed. It's not just the damage that he is going to receive on the path to Mount Doom that he needs to get healed from in Valinor at the end of the book, right? Bilbo didn't undergo nearly the torment that Frodo did as ring bearer, and yet Bilbo can only be made whole again by going off with Frodo and the rest of them to Valinor, right? Even just being a ring bearer, even just wearing the ring, right? Having the ring is one of the effects that it appears to be having. Even the butter scraped over too much bread concept, right, seems to be related to the same thing, right? And anyway, this does seem to be, so this is a long roundabout way of agreeing with you, Fourth Dauntless. I think that those two things, those two observations that you made, are directly connected to each other. It does seem to me, we know for a fact that the change in Frodo's vision starts already, right? It starts right now. It doesn't start after he is like trying to recuperate from Mount Doom, right? We will see when soon, not long from now, we get to Moria. Frodo has already, his sight has been changed. He sees in the dark better than everybody else, right? A small thing, but an indication of a change, right? So yeah, the wound on Weathertop and its consequences, and the closeness that it brought him to death, and the extent to which he was already dragged to the other side. The power of that wound has been broken, and he's been dragged back, but he's not all the way back, right? It's still sort of there. And yes, the anniversary of Weathertop is going to affect him, to affect Frodo strongly later on, right? So we know that it's going to have a continuing effect in that way. Okay, cool. Interesting. Kimber was pointing out that the first paragraph is all about light and visual things, and the second paragraph is all about sound and auditory things. Frodo's sensory experience as he turns back to the room and then readies to continue leaving. That's really interesting, Kimber. We'll come back to that when we look at the second paragraph. Anyway, let's move on to that last sentence, or sentence, yeah. They spoke together, and that is Arwen and Aragorn presumably are speaking together, and then suddenly it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him, and the light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. So the seams there, it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him. On the one hand, that could be nothing more than that same experience that I remember having many times, like at middle school dances, for instance. You know, that like, is she looking at me? It looks like she's looking at me, but I'm not sure she's looking at me. Maybe she's looking at somebody else who's standing near me, right? That seems to be the kind of, not with exactly the same dynamics, but that same kind of thing. That is that Frodo seems to be, I don't know what, hesitant to believe that Arwen is turning towards him specifically, right? That she's looking over at him. But Kimber, it does seem quite likely, or at least very possible, that Aragorn has just said something to Arwen about Frodo. Aragorn may well have seen Frodo leaving, right? And said something to Arwen about Frodo. Maybe, remember we were talking about this last time, like, is anybody going to be kind of wondering, right? And is there going to be any alarm in the room when Bilbo and Frodo sneak off, right? And I think perhaps we do get some evidence here that Frodo is not leaving the room undetected, right? After all, that somebody is definitely noticing this. Yeah. Yeah, good. Okay, so let's see. What else was I going to say about that? It seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him, and the light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. For Dauntless, it is an interesting parallel to Galadriel sort of seeing into their hearts when they come before her. But the word pierced seems to me really important here. Yeah. This would be an interesting search, because I have a theory about what this search would disclose. This might not be something that would be real easy to do on the fly here, but to look at the word pierced in The Lord of the Rings, and when it is not referring to an actual, like when it is not a mere piece of physical description, like if one physical object isn't piercing another physical object, when it's being used metaphorically, right? When it's being used figuratively, my memory suggests to me that the word pierced usually refers to beauty, right? When you see something beautiful and it pierces your heart in that way. That's something which definitely happens on multiple occasions. So I would, it would be interesting to see if I'm right or not about that. Yeah, the eye of Sauron does pierce you too, doesn't it? Does it? Is that word used? Pierced? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Yeah, but anyway, the main point that I would make here, is it possible that she is seeing into his heart? Yeah, that's certainly possible. Not ruling that out in any way. However, the purport of this sentence seems to be about him, not about her, right? He's describing his experience rather than of being seen by her, of receiving her glance, rather than what her glance is up to, right, what it's doing. With Galadriel, we're more interested in what she is doing, right? Well, we're interested in both. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a description on that. Flammifer was suggesting that the seeming might not be seeming to turn toward him, but seeming to pierce. Yeah, well, since pierced is figurative anyway, they know it seemed to Frodo that she turned towards him and the light of her eyes fell on him and pierced his heart. I don't think so, because or in a sense, yes. But again, the piercing is obviously figurative anyway. I mean, he has not actually, there's no actual puncture wound in the wall of his heart. Yeah, exactly. Rococo says, I think he'd know if his heart was being pierced. Exactly. Right. No, yeah. His heart is definitely figuratively pierced. Right. It's a spiritual piercing. Exactly. Exactly. Ambrosius Aurelianus. That's it. Now the light of her eyes falling on him from afar. Kurtzimus, that's a really interesting question. So, in medieval physiology, the medieval people believed that sight, like the capacity of sight, was actually like a ray which emerged from your eyes. Like it was not, they did not see the eyes as passive receptors of light. They didn't think about light shining into their eyes. They saw light coming out. And that's extremely intuitive. So intuitive that even though we modern people have believed scientifically for many, many generations now that our eyes are in fact passive receptacles of light, we still use all of the old figurative language, right? What do you do with a window? You look out the window. You don't stand near the window and let the light from the window come into your eyes, right? You look out, right? You look over. You look around. We talk about our sight as active, not as passive. And again, in the Middle Ages, they believed that literally, right? Like that the rays of light shone out of your eyes. Tolkien totally thinks this way. I'm not saying that he believes that it's true, but this is yeah, good, JJ, you're right. We can see remnants of that even in things like Superman's X-ray vision being drawn as coming out of his eyes, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So anyhow, right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like if you shoot an actual beam out of your eye like Cyclops from the X-Men, but even just like things which are merely vision, right? Anyway, the point is, I'm not saying that, sight is supposed to work that way physiologically in Tolkien's world, except it kind of does, right? I mean, think about it. Bilbo can see the light from Gollum's eyes from behind his head, right? There's nothing metaphorical. There's nothing figurative about the light that emerges from Gollum's eyes. They literally glow, not reflectively, but with a light of their own. That's quite common. There are many creatures whose eyes glow with light, actual light shining out of their eyes, right? And even more importantly, JJ just posted a picture of Superman's X-ray vision shining out. But anyway, yeah, even more importantly, the figurative language, like people's glances are often coming out, like just like Frodo's being pierced here. It's definitely good. A green great dragon is remembering when the mouth of Sauron sort of flinches back from Aragorn's gaze. Yeah, exactly. The gaze of a strong-willed person is very, it hits you again, like something is coming out from them and hitting you, right? That is so common as to be almost universal in Tolkien's world. So that's just kind of something that we have to get used to, right? Good. Keen is an adjective, Kurtzimus, that is often described, or is often attached to people's gazes, right? Yes, if your gaze is keen, or your glance is keen, which means it cuts, right? It cuts through things. Absolutely. Yeah. Good. Okay. So anyway, Kurtzimus, thank you for bringing that up, because it's a really important thing. In fact, that would be a really cool topic for a presentation at a regional moot, just saying, to look at like the gaze in Tolkien, and the relationship between like the gaze and will, I think would be really, really cool to look at. Anyway, okay. So the light of her eyes is falling on him from afar, and it's piercing his heart. I still think that the seams in that second sentence is primarily a bit of humility on Frodo's part. That is, he doesn't assume that she's totally looking at him. Okay. Second paragraph. We're not making much progress towards our 3 slides here tonight, are we? But we're gonna. This is the longest one. Okay. He stood still enchanted, while the sweet syllables of the elvish song fell like clear jewels of blended word and melody. I love the simile of the syllables of the song are like jewels of blended word and melody. And if that sentence doesn't say, you did read the elvish poem, didn't you? Right? You read it aloud, right? If you didn't read it aloud, go back and read it again, right? That is totally what that sentence says to me. Just so that you, yeah. Okay, good. Oh, excellent. Matt says that there are 3 gazes piercing Frodo. 3 gazes pierce Frodo. The Witch King at Weathertop, Arwen here, and Elrond at the council. Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. Exactly, Lady Shmebuak. It just won't let you skim over the poetry. It won't even let you not read it aloud, right? That's the really important thing here. You need to hear it, because they are blended word and melody. He stood still enchanted. I think, is this a literal enchantment? Yeah. I think it is a literal enchantment. He's being enchanted by the song that he's hearing, again, right, by listening to the elves sing I Elbereth Gilthoniel, and by this vision that he's had, not only of Arwen and her gaze, but of Elrond and Aragorn too, right? And again, this Fourth Dauntless is bringing me back to Elrond and to Aragorn and his seeming armor and star shining, right? Is that part of the enchantment, right? And again, like, do I think it's implausible that Aragorn is dressed in literal armor? No, he may very, very well be in armor. He might even have a sparkly jewel on his breast, and yet, again, sort of the true being of all these things is being revealed to Frodo. I think it is part of the enchantment. And in that way, maybe that is the causal link, therefore, between I Elbereth Gilthoniel and this, right? This is the enchanted effect it is having on him here. Exactly. So the whole face like summer, clad in elven mail, pierced heart thing all takes place in a moment mid-song. Yes, exactly. The sweet syllables of the elvish song are still falling like clear jewels of blended word and melody when we're getting that paragraph from before. So we had the song itself, and then we get these first 2 paragraphs of prose are like during that song. Like, meanwhile, while Frodo was hearing this is what was happening. That is very much how I read that. Okay. It is a song to Elbereth, said Bilbo. They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Come on. Yeah, For Thoughtless thinks that Bilbo's gloss is a little unnecessary. Again, this seems to me like Bilbo's observation. It's hard for me not to read that again as like, you know, elven poetry for dummies, right? He gives us a poem in Elvish. We talked about this last time, that's a bold move, right? And I mean for Tolkien, not for the elves, right? But for Tolkien to present this, not only an embedded poem, which many people skip the poems anyway, but an embedded poem not even in English, right? Which it would seem we would be doubly likely to not read, right? But just in case we didn't, he cues us, right, about those sweet syllables and what they should be like, right, if we're doing them properly. And then just in case we weren't paying a lick of attention, Bilbo says, in like the Cliff's Notes version of the song, it's a song to Elbereth, right? So it does kind of seem to me here that Tolkien is ensuring that there is no chance that we miss anything about that. We have to know. It seems important, right, to acknowledge that fact. It's a song to Elbereth. This is going to be important later. They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Yeah, Turambar says, was the song trying to keep Frodo inside the threshold of Faerie? It seems to do, at any rate. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's hard to leave, right? It's like physically hard for Frodo to leave the Hall of Fire. Absolutely. Yeah, and it is definitely a transition back into our world, right? They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm. Notice, now, songs of the Blessed Realm, that probably means a song. Does it mean a song about the Blessed Realm? Or does it mean a song from the Blessed Realm, like imported from the Blessed Realm by the Noldor? Yeah, good. Matt says the fact that it's called a song as opposed to a hymn is an interesting choice because it implies a familiarity rather than sort of more distant worship. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I always assumed it meant written there too, Simon. That was always my thought. Songs of the Blessed Realm, like, yeah, straight out of Valinor, right? That would be the soundtrack for the rest of the evening here. Yeah. Now, but Mike, see, that's the other thing that I was thinking. Mike says, isn't this exact song about being across the sea from the Blessed Realm? It's true that they couldn't have sung it in exactly that same way in Valinor, right? At least the end of the verse would have to be adapted, in fact. Yes. But that's okay. Remember, we saw a different version of this also when Gildor was singing it back in the Shire, and we got it in, translated, right? We got it in English. It's not a parody, JJ, of the Valinorian version. It's just another verse, right? I think that this is a long song, a hymn of praise to Elbereth, to which they have been adding verses ever since they left Valinor. It may well be that this song is kind of like, a name, an Entish name, right, which tells the story of the thing that it describes. I think that seems very likely. Yeah. So So yes, exactly. So I mean, this verse, they wouldn't have sung this verse. It's certainly not in exactly this form back then. But again, yeah, that doesn't, that to me, that doesn't seem to exclude it from being a song from the Blessed Realm in that way. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, so the come on, right? Um, the juxtaposition there is really kind of interesting, right? They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. That seems like a good reason to stay, right? Um, uh, his transition to come on is a little bit, I don't want to say jarring. It's not exactly jarring, but it's certainly interesting, right? It shows Bilbo's familiarity with this, right? Oh yeah, they're going to be singing. They're always doing this, right? Um, but Frodo's never heard this before. Not here, not like this, right? Um, but Bilbo's encouraging him to break the spell. Exactly, Tora Marthin, and keep going. Um, well, let's look and see where they go so that we can better judge Bilbo's desire to keep Frodo moving. He led Frodo back to his own little room. It opened onto the gardens and looked south across the ravine of the Bruinen. There they sat for some while, looking through the window at the bright stars above the steep climbing woods, and talking softly. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Okay. They go back to his own little room. So we've left the Hall of Fire. We've left that, the heart of Elronddom on Earth, right? We've left, where they're singing songs of the Blessed Realm, and we've gone to Bilbo's little room. So we've moved from the big world to the little world, from the world of not only the big people, but the great people, right? And we've come back to the world of a little people. And I agree, Karita, this is a really sweet moment. This is just a beautiful paragraph, right? But notice Bilbo's own little room opens onto the gardens, right? So they gave him a room which opens onto gardens. Remember what's Gandalf's first words to Bilbo in chapter 1 of the book, right? When they're sitting down together again. How bright your garden looks, he says to Bilbo. Yes, I'm very fond of it, says Bilbo. This is very thoughtful, very kind of the elves to give him a room like this that opens onto the gardens. They've given a room on the ground level, right, where he will be most comfortable, and one which opens out onto the gardens, which aren't exactly like his gardens back in Bag End, but is going to be some kind of substitute for that, right? And look south across the ravine of the Bruinen. So they're looking now. The ravine of the Bruinen isn't exactly the boundary of Rivendell, right? I mean, the crossing of the Bruinen was the boundary, and so I still sort of associate it with that, right? Because of the whole flight to the Ford business, that we got before. Anyway, I mean, so it's one of the things that I think of. But it's a room which is Bilbo's little hobbit room, opening out onto gardens. But there's also the ravine of the Bruinen, which sounds much more grand, right? They didn't want him throwing the dishes out the window, says the Green Great Dragon. Absolutely. As hobbits are wont to do if they have any stairs. So, I mean, is this... that description, doesn't it sound like the perfect little Took and Baggins room, right? Just enough Baggins it's just enough Baggins-ish, right? With its own little gardens, and also just enough Took, right? Looking south across the ravine of the Bruinen, right? That does really, Kurtzimus, as you say, seem to suit him perfectly. There they sat for some while, looking through the window at the bright stars above the steep climbing woods, and talking softly. What are they talking about? Remember, they were having real news before, right? They were telling Bilbo about everything that had happened in the Shire since he left. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them. So they don't talk about what was. They don't talk about what's happening, right? They don't talk about current events. They don't talk about previous events, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Now, syntax issue. I can't help but notice that he breaks the parallelism at the end of the sentence, right? It's a carefully parallel sentence up until that point. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Exactly, Mike. No of. Why isn't it of the stars, of trees, and of the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods? I mean, that entire sentence from they spoke no more of the small news has been a series of parallel prepositional phrases, not all of the same length, of course, a series of parallel prepositional phrases, except the end, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Good. Rinrus is asking about the comma then between trees and. Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. Without an of for that last thing, right, the last item in the list, the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods, then technically the and is not linking all of the prepositional phrases together, but it would be a compound object of the preposition of trees and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods, but the comma breaks it up, right? Remember, and by the way, this is why Oxford commas are necessary, and there's not even a cause for debate. It's a silly debate, because commas and conjunctions have different jobs. Indeed, their jobs are diametrically opposed. They have completely opposite jobs. The word and, right? A conjunction like that, its job is to join words together. Conjunctions join words together. That's what they do, right? Commas separate words or phrases or clauses, right? That's what they do. That's the job of commas and the job of conjunctions. That's why you need both in a list. You need the conjunction in order to bring together all of the items on the list, and you need the commas to keep all the items in the list separate from each other, including the last two, if you want those two to be separate items on your list. So again, it's not a style question. It's not a preference. It is a logical necessity based on how punctuation and conjunctions work in the English language. So anyway, that comma, therefore, is separating trees from the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Now, what is the significance here? Well, looking at the, so we have a series of parallel phrases, as I said, right? All those ofs, which start from the beginning. But first of all, notice that not all ofs are treated similarly here, right? That is to say, they spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together. Those three are clearly parallel, right? They spoke no more of this, nor of that, but of this. That, the logical flow of those phrases, right? They spoke no more of this, nor of that, but of this. That's the logical structure of that sentence. The other ofs are more like appositives, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, which include such diverse elements as elves, stars, trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Right? That's exactly, Mike. The elves are the first of the examples we get of those things, right? So as I said, it's not just like one big, huge parallel structure where everything is even, right? Because it's not even. And the other thing is that the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. I mean, this is going to sound really simplistic, but it's Agathian spy. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I see your comments. So yeah, no, I hear you. I'm trying to respond to the comments of many people all at once here. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's sorry, Agathian spy, you must be new. I can see the Twitch chat and I will sometimes interact with you there. Most of the people I'm interacting with are in Discord so that there isn't the lag, right? So that's why, yeah. But anyway, I do see you. Anyway, there it is. Okay. So yeah, the problem is not that I'm interacting with no one. The problem is that I'm interacting with lots of people. Okay. So anyway, where am I going? Yeah, gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. So the really simplistic thing that I was about to say that I interrupted myself with, is the length of the phrase, right? The elves, the stars, trees, right? Those are short things. We don't get any description, right? We get any other, subordinate phrases there, right? Whereas the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods is more in its length and in its structure parallel to the small news of the Shire far away, or the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, or the fair things they had seen in the world together, the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. You hear the parallel there, right? So it's almost like we get the three things, no more of this, nor of that, but of this. Then we get a few examples, elves, stars, trees, and then we get almost like a fourth thing, right? Which is set apart through the lack of parallelism, right? And the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. And it does make it sound a little bit like, Simon, as you're saying, it almost reads as a sentence fragment. Yeah, the break from parallelism. I mean, it's a syntactic flaw. I mean, if I were grading a paper, I'd circle it and be like, oh yeah, fix this, right? But this is not a sentence that sounds like it just got away from Tolkien. This is a very carefully constructed sentence. And so therefore, I'm not going to proceed on the presumption that it's just a mistake. It might be, and a mistake that he just missed every time he revised it, but I don't think so. Or at least, if it is, that's not interesting to talk about. And if it's not a mistake, it is interesting to talk about. So I'm going to proceed on the assumption that it's interesting to talk about. Anyway, so the Matt, you were saying before that it does suggest or one of the things that's different about it is that now all of a sudden we're talking about time, right? Like the items in this thing are not like the other, right? That is, if we just think of the things after seen in the world, the things they'd seen in the world together, there's not a colon, but like elves, stars, trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year. There's one of those things which is not like the other, right? Elves, stars, and trees, for instance, are all things that you can see in the world, right? They are all fair things that they have seen in the world together, right? Not only have they both seen them in the world, they've both seen them together, right? They have shared experiences of elves, stars, and trees. And then there's the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. That also they have seen metaphorically, right? But that also they have seen, but not in the same way, right? It's a different kind of thing. But now notice this other thing, right? Notice that. Remember how I said that last phrase sounds like it's more parallel with the phrases at the beginning of the sentence, right? There's a kind of time dimension to this whole sentence if you think about it, right? They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, that is, the things in the past. Remember, they were briefing Bilbo about what's gone on for the last 17 years back in the Shire, right? So they didn't speak any more of the past, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, that is, of the present, right? But of things initially sort of outside of time, right? Things that are not connected to time. Of the elves, of the stars, of the trees. And then the last thing is the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. The fourth thing that they have seen is time, the passing of time itself. And from that way, looking towards the future, right? So you've got, there's this whole sentence has a kind of orientation in time in that way. And the sentence or the phrase that looks towards the future is definitely positioning us in the fall. I mean, it is fall, right? It's October at the time when this is happening, and they're looking out at the steep climbing woods, right, outside the doors of Bilbo's room. So anyway, what they're seeing is not just the woods in autumn, right? Notice that the woods are pretty far from the primary thing that they're seeing. And the fall. What fall? The autumn? No. The fall of the bright year. Where's the bright year falling? In the woods, right? And I agree, several of you were talking about bright. Bright is a really interesting adjective, isn't it? That's actually, boy, the word bright would be another really good topic for a presentation at a regional moot, come to think of it. Just do a presentation on the ways in which the adjective bright is used in The Lord of the Rings. That would be really cool. But anyway, the year is bright, or rather the year has been bright, but it's falling gently. The year is gently falling in the woods, makes us now picture literally leaves falling from trees in the woods. So absolutely, very strongly suggestive of autumn. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's the thing that's kind of being described, right? But it's also kind of not just talking about the falling leaves, right? It's the fall of the bright year. It's the year that's falling, right? Yeah, exactly. So it's, again, it's totally an autumnal metaphor. Absolutely an autumn metaphor. No question. But that thing, the autumn, the future, the autumn, right? The future-oriented phrase, but that's the part that's not parallel, right? Does it suggest... This might be going too far, but it just occurred to me. Remember what the of refers to? The repeated of in this sentence all goes back to the verb spoke. They spoke of, right? These are the topics of their conversation. They spoke not of this, nor of that, but of this, including of this, right? Of elves, of stars, of trees. And then we're not told that they spoke of the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Are they not speaking of it? Are they avoiding that subject? Is that subject the subject of the future? The late October kind of future? That they're... yeah, Simon, I totally agree. We need to diagram this sentence. It would be a good one. Lots of danglies in this sentence, but yeah, do you see what I mean? Like, it's that last phrase should be tied to the main verb. They spoke, but it's not tied to the main verb, right? Again, the parallelism fails, conspicuously fails. I mean, it's pretty darn conspicuous when you have parallel phrases which succeed in being correctly parallel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times already, right? And on the 7th, it fails of its parallelism. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. That's really cool. I never noticed that before. The lack of parallelism, I mean. It's very striking. Back up now and look at the bigger picture. I know, hard to imagine, right? Bigger picture than like the syntax. Think about the significance of their subjects of conversation, right? Having left the Hall of Fire, having left the elvish enchantment of the songs of the Blessed Realm, which will be sung many times, having left that vision of Arwen and Elrond and Aragorn, having, with Arwen's gaze, which pierces the heart, the experience that Frodo had as when he was enchanted, all those things. Having left all that behind, what do we get instead, right? What does he do instead? We're exchanging that not for hobbitry, right? News, real news, like before. We're not exchanging it for worry or even speculation about, what's going on. Instead, it's about the appreciation of beauty, the fair things they had seen in the world together. They've just left elvish enchantment behind, right? They're going to sing many songs of the Blessed Realm tonight. They're going to sing that in other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Come on. Let's get out of here, right? Says Bilbo. So that they can talk about elves together, right? They talk about the elves and of the stars and of trees. I wonder if, of course, you'll notice another way in which there's a small break in parallelism there is that he doesn't say of the trees, of the elves, of the stars, of the trees. I wonder if he broke that parallelism so it didn't sound like they're talking about the trees of like the trees, capital T, right, of Valinor. Yeah. And the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. Great. I just love the end of that sentence. The context of all that autumnal imagery at the end, right? Talking about, or if they're actually talking about, or is the idea of the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods just kind of part of their talk or emerging from their talk as they, are under the late October woods, steep climbing above them on the slopes. But the gentle fall of the bright year it's not sad, right? It's not tragic. It's not gloomy. It's in the context of the fair things they have seen in the world, right? The gentle fall of the bright year in the woods is beautiful. It is a fair thing. Elves, stars, trees, the gentle fall of the bright year. Is the bright year the time of the elves? Kurtzimus asks, which is a great question. Yeah. Quite possibly. Yeah. In this context, in the Rivendell context, and given the the elves that they're just talking about, it feels that way. Okay. Well, let's keep going, because this is our last slide. At last there came a knock on the door. "Begging your pardon," said Sam, putting in his head, "but I was just wondering if you would be wanting anything." "And begging yours, Sam Gamgee," replied Bilbo. "I guess you mean that it is time your master went to bed." "Well, sir, there is a council early tomorrow, I hear, and he only got up today for the first time." "Quite right, Sam," laughed Bilbo. "You can trot off and tell Gandalf that he has gone to bed. Good night, Frodo. Bless me, but it has been good to see you again. There are no folk like hobbits, after all, for a real good talk. I am getting very old, and I began to wonder if I should live to see your chapters of our story. Good night. I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. Sleep well." Okay. Yeah, Kurtzimus, you see how well Bilbo reads between the lines here, right? Bilbo not only sees through the "I was just wondering if you would be wanting anything" line, right? Not only does he clearly perceive that Sam is gently hinting that Frodo should get to bed, he also picks up on the fact that he is certainly going to, meant to report back to Gandalf about what he saw. So absolutely. Yeah. I like, by the way, Bilbo's use of his full name. "And begging yours, Sam Gamgee, I guess you mean that it is time your master went to bed." I take the use of his first and last name to be a teasingly scolding tone, right? Kind of like when you call your kids with their middle names, right? "And begging yours, Sam Gamgee, I guess you mean that it is time your master went to bed," said Bilbo, with a gentle and teasing rebuke for Sam's slight and not very serious bit of indirection, right? Of not deception. That's a little too strong for it, right? But now you're right, Lincoln. Not quite his full name. He doesn't call him Samwise Gamgee, right? He would have been in even more trouble then. But yeah, Sam's, Sam was being diplomatic and polite, right? And Bilbo is, again, clearly teasingly calling him on it. Bilbo laughs, clearly affectionately, right, at both at Sam's solicitousness for Frodo, right? Sam's very practical reminder that he only just got up today for the first time, and there's a council early tomorrow, right? So he really needs to rest now, right? For lots of reasons. Yeah. And Karita, you're right that Bilbo he takes his lighthearted tone and begins to say some fairly, not grim, but fairly serious things, right? Good night, Frodo. Bless me, but it has been good to see you again. There are no folk like hobbits after all for a real good talk. I am getting very old, and I began to wonder if I should live to see your chapters of our story. I didn't know if I was going to die of old age before you got here, right? Now, on the one hand, that's also kind of a teasing thing to say, right? Took you long enough, Frodo. But you know, he's even notice the way that he makes it less personal, less emotional, right? He doesn't say, I began to wonder if I would ever see you again before my death, right? He doesn't say anything like that. Just, if I should live to see your chapters of our story. He's not only like lived his life and had his adventure, he's written his chapters of their story. And yes, Kurtzimus, I agree. The significance of the Our story is really interesting, right? He had hoped to live long enough to see the chapters of their story together. Notice one of the implications of that, right? It's not just that he had wanted to see Frodo again. It is that, but it's more than that. He wanted to see Frodo's chapters of their combined story written. In other words, finished and done, and hopefully happily done like his, right? He wants Frodo to come back again and for them to write his chapters of their collective story so that then they can both retire together, right? And he wants to see how it ends, Tormarthen, absolutely. I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. And I think, Simon, it was you who was talking about the clear parallels here, right? Think about the Elbereth thread which has run through this chapter, right? Especially the latter parts of this chapter. Bilbo's song, right? And Elbereth's role. Remember, she's the only other named person besides, well, Elwing is, but the only named person in Valinor, right? Everyone else is vague except for Elbereth. So we got Elbereth, setting up Earendil's boat. And then we got, of course, the Elbereth song, right, which Bilbo draws further attention to. And then they've just been talking about stars, and now he's going to go out and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden, right? Bilbo's little walk in the garden under the stars by himself there at the end, it's like his own little hobbity hymn to Elbereth, right? He's not going to sing a song of the Blessed Realm, right? That's not how he does it. But yet there's still what seems to sound almost like a purposeful communing with Elbereth by Bilbo there. Oh, that's an interesting comment, Arden Crayon. Arden Crayon says Bilbo has exchanged the hard immortality of the ring for the soft immortality of a shared story. That's really cool. I like that. The other thing I'd say, Arden Crayon, is, again, I'm thinking about the parallel we were making between Bilbo and Eärendil in this chapter, right? Eärendil earns hard immortality too. And Bilbo's soft immortality of the shared story is, much softer than the kind of immortality that Eärendil earns, right? And with a much smaller price tag. Yeah. Valori, that I think is a really good comment. Worship doesn't seem to come naturally to hobbits. They seem even a little embarrassed to talk about it directly. I agree. Reverence, that kind of reverence is not a thing that the hobbits do normally. This, I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. If you think about it, can you think of many other sentences uttered by hobbits in The Lord of the Rings which comes closer to devotion, like religious devotion or worship? I mean, it's unusual. There are other people. I mean, again, we've had the Elvish hymn to Elbereth, both what Gildor was singing and what we heard in the hall, especially once we worked our way through the translation. It's that's openly worshipful, right, of Elbereth. Belongsmon says, other than E-bombs. Yeah, true. But even there, that's not exactly devotional. I mean, when Frodo invokes Elbereth and Luthien the Fair at the ford, there is a kind of devotional element to that, to the invocation, right? But even that isn't exactly. It's one thing to kind of ally yourself, right? To say, I mean, it's important what he did, right? He's sort of taking a stand, and he's like, I'm here. I'm on the side of I'm on Elbereth and Luthien's side, right? This bank of the river is Elbereth and Luthien's bank of the river, and I'm over here and you're over there. And that's important and everything, but it's not devotional, right? It's still not that. It's not like he's having a moment with Elbereth. And it kind of sounds like Bilbo is meaning to have a moment with Elbereth here in the garden. Good. Fourth Dauntless, I agree. We will see the same kind of discomfort at the window to the west. Yeah, when the soldiers of Gondor are all showing their devotion, right? Having a moment of explicit worship. And the hobbits are kind of uncomfortable and not sure what to do. Yeah, good. Let's see. What else was I going to say? Or something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah, just thinking of the hobbitry again with Sam. You can trot off. The trot off line is another last teasing of Sam, right? Treating him as a messenger to tease him for having been, having made himself a messenger, right? Gandalf's proxy here in the room. You can trot off and tell Gandalf that he has gone to bed. Yes, I see through you, and I'm gently teasing you for that. Yeah. Trot off in your wooden shoes, Mike. Exactly. Yep, good. Yeah, Fourth Dauntless says that he thinks Bilbo still thinks of Sam as a small child. Yeah, possibly so. And nothing could be likelier, right? If, Frodo is Bilbo's primary protege, Sam was his star student, right? But clearly of a younger generation than Frodo. And Sam is still Bilbo's student in some ways. Absolutely. That's why I really love, this is something we just noticed in Sauron Defeated in the Mythgard Academy when we were discussing that book just a few months back. In the first draft, the first time that Tolkien wrote through the Many Partings chapter in The Return of the King, when he got to the part where Bilbo is saying goodbye to Frodo and Sam and the rest of them and giving presents, right? Of course, you'll remember in the published text, he gives Sam the very last of the Smaug vintage, almost the last of the Smaug vintage, right? He gives him gold in case he thinks about getting married. In the very first draft, he gives Sam books of lore. He explicitly makes Sam, his literary executor. He gives him some of his Elvish lore books, and I loved that. It's one of the. There are a few times when we're reading the earlier drafts, and I'm like, oh, I wish he'd kept the original thing. That's even better. I like the money, the gold to get married. It's really cute, but I like the Bilbo passing down to Sam his books of Elvish lore even better. I think that's super awesome. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's it. Sleep well is the end of the chapter. So after only 32, or is it 33 sessions, we oh man, I was wondering about this. Okay, hang on. Let's see if I can put this on screen and make it bigger. Hang on. So here's our Discord chat, and Okay. Thank you, Evil Dr. Cannon. So here's our plot for pages, weeks per chapter. Right, so the weeks per chapter is the blue lines. We had achieved a new high at, I think, 16 weeks to do the fight to the ford, and now a new... we doubled our old top to get up there. Interesting that the pages, because this is a long chapter, so it wasn't just me. I was thinking, like, it's not totally just my fault, right? There's a slight drop in pages per week. We dropped from 1 page per week in Flight to the Ford down to a little bit less, maybe 3/4 of a page per week in many meetings. But the drop down in pages per week is not nearly as sharp as the rise up. So partly, you see, it's not my fault. It's due to the length, you see, of many meetings. Now, so this leads then to the logical question, Evil Dr. Cannon. At the pace that we achieved there in many meetings, how many weeks can we expect for the Council of Elrond? This is the great speculation that people have been having. And I've been saying now for a little while that I didn't think we're going to necessarily go slower in the Council of Elrond, but of course there are a lot of pages. So yeah, I wonder. It's 32 pages versus 20, yeah. So at least 50% more. So the over-under's got to be somewhere around 45 to 50 sessions for the Council of Elrond. Yeah. Okay, Fourth Dauntless is putting his money on 42 weeks. Okay. See, well, exactly. Arden Crayon, the Council of Elrond is much more prosy, and that's why I've been kind of thinking all along we will likely... I think... Okay, so my prediction is the red line is gonna go up, I think, in the Council of Elrond. But it is going to be longer, of course, because it's significant. It is by a good bit the longest chapter in The Lord of the Rings. So, yep. I think it's going to be... You think we'll be finished before the snow melts? Where? I mean, maybe in the Arctic Circle, but 50... I mean... Even 45 weeks is the better part of a year. I mean, the question isn't really, are we likely to finish before the snow of this year melts, but are we going to finish before the snow of next year flies? Is really the question, I think. Yes, in northern Canada. Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay. Anyway. All right. So Frodo definitely needs to rest up before we get to the Council of Elrond, because we got plenty to do before that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. Now we're gonna continue. We're gonna do our field trip now, but this concludes our text discussion as we have triumphantly concluded Chapter 1 of Book 2. And thanks. I have been thinking about that graph, Evil Dr. Cannon. So thank you for updating that. Great. So let's going through. So I'm going to say goodbye to the folks on Twitter who have been looking at me at a weird angle tonight as I'm looking at my totally different hardware setup. I'll try to see if I can improve that moving forward. Not quite sure how that's going to work, but anyway, okay. So feel free to join us, twitch.tv/SignumU. Okay, and we are going to... Good evening, Valori. And let's first just check and make sure everybody can hear Valori through the Twitch feed there. And I'm going to expand this. And there we go.
All right.
Okay. Excellent. Very good.
Okay, got the confirmation on Twitch and Discord.
Excellent. Oh man. Hang on, except now my my game here seems to be frozen. That's not so good.
Oh no.
Tried to expand it and it instead seems to have
Gotta wait for the hamster to run on the wheel.
Died to death. Yeah, exactly. Well, I am running quite a few things at a time here tonight.
A laptop usually turns into a hot plate about now, but...
Darn it. Okay. Oh, wait. Something just happened. I don't know what just happened. Oh dear. Well, that's a little awkward.
Yeah, it might be frozen in game.
Yeah.
Might be best to X out and come back in.
That's what I'm thinking. Let's see.
Yeah, you're gonna want to restart the game.
Yeah, oh, definitely going to restart the game. I think the problem went deeper than the game. Okay,
It's
no
coming
problem.
from inside the house.
Yeah.
Not Moria tonight, Bricktails.
No, not Moria tonight. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're
Man, I'd have
taking
to
our
complete that
time
quest.
looking at the Arid Lewin because we will have plenty of time to carry on discussing. So,
Quite.
um,
The goal for tonight was Nuglund, I believe.
that's it. That's it. Now my goal is just to successfully reboot things there without having to cut off the stream and start it again. Yeah, okay. Wait, oh. That's progress. Whoa. Straight back into the game? For real? Wow. Wow.
You didn't even fall offline.
Amazing. I don't understand that. Huh.
Can you move?
Okay, yeah, I can move. Let's see. Will this work now? That's the problem. Okay, it's confusing it. Let me do a different thing then. Except it's already confused it. Now that I've ascertained what is confusing it.
There he is.
There you go. You're confusing the polarity bar.
Yeah. I'm definitely
Reverse the
confusing it.
polarity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I just have to reverse the polarity and then it'll be fine, right? That's how you fix things.
Wibbly wobbly webby debby.
Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, you got Druid's Fire. I think you were noticing that the frame of my, like, the frame is kind of weird on my picture, right? How I'm like super narrow here.
Yeah, I didn't notice it, but I am noticing it now that you mentioned it.
The reason that happened is because I'm using a different webcam, and so like it's in order to get it to, and it's like further away, so therefore like my green screen is like only like it kind of projects back to, so like in order to not get the door on the other side of my green screen and everything else, I had to kind of compress it in, and it just looks stranger because the other one was just closer to me and at a different angle.
Having recently rearranged my desk in my webcam, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, and of course the little Signum eagle that I put above my head, my little logo there, makes it look even more vertical. This whole vertical effect I'm getting here. But anyhow, okay, all right.
It looks like you've got a halo.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about it, right? My old banner, which is still hanging behind my green screen, and which I still show in some of my other broadcasts. Yeah, it kind of framed and I was totally accidental, right? I just had it on a banner on the wall behind me to have the Signum logo decorating the wall behind me. And yeah, it kind of frames my head exactly like a halo on a medieval painting. So I would recreate that effect here. Okay, and boom, I'm back again, or still. Okay, now this time I'm going to do something different. I'm just going to Stretch it out this way. Okay, there we go. That'll do. Okay. And now I think we can go. Maybe.
Yeah, you're not back in game because Valoria's
Yeah.
dancing.
I'm
Valoria's
stalling
dancing?
for time.
Weird.
This is very odd because
It's very odd
you
because I
should
can see and I
her
can move
dancing.
around, but I can't move forward and backwards. So hang on.
Are you in the correct server? Or-
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm seeing you there. You're
No,
just...
I'm seeing my own character.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're just not. Okay, hang on. Let me just exit and come back in again.
Oh yeah, I can't see what you see, so it doesn't really help. And jeté.
I think
There we
you're
go.
still stuck in your own. Basically, what you're seeing is all of our characters in your client, but you actually had a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just. It
Kinda
was
stuck
stuck.
in some.
Let me.
You're stuck in the nexus.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm gonna come out and come back in. Okay. Well, that actually makes more sense to me because if I had still been in, I would have been deeply confused as to why. Okay. Whoa. I think I'm going to experience some serious lag issues.
Not
Oh,
my
dear.
fault.
No, not your fault. But I think it's a matter of my, again, I'm using totally new software for streaming and it's not I think
What are you using now?
I am now using Game Capture HD by Elgato.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with.
Because that's what I got with the Rambunctious Riola's new capture card for his Switch. And that
Yeah.
pretty much worked, so...
When I had a capture card, it's currently in the position of our community manager. I actually still used XSplit, which is my original.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, and Katrina says the lag has been kind of bad lately. I think it's yeah, we'll
Yep.
see.
Hey,
Okay.
you phased in.
There you are.
I'm back slowly. Okay.
And you're in the right instance because I can see Valori in the right place and I can see
That's
Furnace
right.
playing
And I
music
can
under
walk.
Furnace.
Okay, good. Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Huzzah, huzzah.
Huzzah, huzzah. Let's head off.
And there was much rejoicing.
And I'll deal with lag.
Yay.
But as of course we tend to do a lot of standing around and looking at things in the field trip, lag should not be too fatal.
They are going to be patching later this week, so hopefully they'll fix them.
Yeah, it might. I think that it's mostly not. It's not even my internet, which is actually fine. It's been improved. It's my. I think it's my system, which is running a whole bunch of new software and groaning under the strain. I think.
So are we going to Colondum and riding up then? Or Thorin's Hall this time?
That is an excellent question. Let's go to Colondum again.
Okay.
At risk of crossing countryside, a lot of countryside with lag.
Whenever you have lag, I get lost.
Yeah. But we'll see.
Yes, okay.
I'm going to cheat because my home is set to Thorin's Hall. Haha.
We can certainly meet you there. No problems.
Indeed, we shall.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so we of course have. Oh man, this is awful. Actually, well, I'll labor through this week, and then I'll try to see. Hopefully next week, things can be better. Okay.
What can I do for you?
You can take me to Colundum.
Right, the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so anyway, we got a review because it's been 3 weeks at least since we last did our like normal field trips over here in Arid Lewin.
absolutely.
So let's try to remember where we were. I mean, not geographically. I remember geographically. I'm thinking thematically where we were.
Thematically, I think we were looking at what you call Sarnor, and noticing that there were a lot of dower hand architecture.
And we had just gotten
And
up
Sarnor.
the last yes, and then the last thing we did after that was the treasure hunting fields, right?
Yes. Well, also the area outside of Sarnor, the part that the
Yes.
goblins and dower hands had taken over.
Yes.
And noticing.
Yes, exactly. And we noticed a lot of so Sarnor obviously was one of the places with the most almost just like ran off the cliff over there. Remind me not to try to ride my war steed tonight. That could be absolutely disastrous.
No.
Can I make this really wide bridge? Let's see. Can we do it? I think this is one of my only bridges for the evening, so as long as I can get over this one, I should be comparatively safe across the rest of the terrain here. Okay, so
Comparatively.
so we're noticing a lot of long beardish. Wasn't it long beardish? Long beardy. Long beardy, yes. A lot of long beardy architecture, and no, it was dour handy and long beardish, right?
Long beardish, not long beardian.
I don't think it was beardian, because I think I found ish more comical since I was going with dour handy almost entirely for the comic value.
Okay.
Though Valamoinen thoracic is pretty good, actually. That's really the thoracic period as the period of Thorin and company is kind of fun, really. That's way funnier than Longbeardish, actually.
We'd have to name an area Thoracic Park.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, like, Thorin's Gate is basically Thoracic
Yes,
Park, right?
that's Thoracic Park. Well, the courtyard is.
Yeah. Yeah. That is excellent. That's very, very good. Okay, so anyway, all right, so what we wanted to see is so that the next little town over, we were going to see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
What I
so
recall from the game, I think it's a little fishing village almost.
right. Hey, so while I'm riding over laboriously with my lag, what any thoughts from you guys on Minas Morgul yet? I've, needless to say, not been to Minas Morgul yet, as Wigan is still only level 100. But reactions to Minas Morgul?
Yeah, I'd like to hear your. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet
Yeah,
either.
I haven't yet. So here's let me say one of my questions. Well, not exactly questions. One sort of ponderings about Minas Morgul, and that is thinking about Shelob in particular. Because one of the very first things that I remember thinking when I was in Angmar for the first time, and we fought that truly ginormous spider. What was it? The Bogbareth, right? Yeah, Bogbareth.
Yeah, Bogbareth. I was screaming a lot, if I recall.
Yes, the first time I met Bogbareth, who is like the size of the Brontosaurus, right? And and then we're supposed to mount her head on the wall when her head was clearly larger than any house I owned.
Close scale.
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, So I remember thinking during the first time I ever fought Bogbreath, I was thinking to myself, okay, what are they going to do when they get to Shelob? Like, Shelob has to seem worse than this, right? Shelob has to be the most terrifying spider in the whole game, right?
It'd be like the Watcher in the water at that point.
Right, exactly. So like and often there's a strong correlation between physical size and, like, sort of grandeur, or like like wonder, like the inspiration of awe, right? In the game, I mean, specifically, like the game tends to correlate physical size with, like, and this is like the greatest of all the things. It's one of the reasons why so many of the, even of the landscape items, are often so much larger than they're described in the game, or so much larger than would actually be practical, or necessary, or anything like that. So that's a general correlation, but it's not like it's a rule that they're stuck to, right? So my assumption, even while I was fighting Bogbreath, my assumption was that Shelob was going to have to be, like, scary and impressive in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So
like maybe it's a black background and you can't see her attack until she's out
maybe
in
the
light,
darkness
kind of
or shadow, or some other way in which you have to interact with her, or whatever.
Or if there's going to be like a breed of spider called Ungolden Terrier or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, that's another thing from the drafts. It was originally Ungoliant. Like, Sam was literally fighting Ungoliant herself in the first draft of that story. He decided not to make it Ungoliant. And it was relatively early on. She wasn't Ungoliant for very long. But there was a full draft in which Sam was actually fighting Ungoliant. And I agree, Simon, there has to be something with the stink, right? The overwhelming reek of Shelob. Not just the fear, like, it's not just fear that's created by her, but that I mean, there is fear, right? There's fear, and then there's the smell, but there's also the, like, paralyzing effect of her will, where she, like, freezes them in place and then lets them run for a while. So, there's a lot to. I mean, Shelob is so much more than physical power, right? I think it'd be pretty cool if the fight with Shelob, you don't even, like, physically interact with her for, how, like, they usually set up the boss fights in raids and stuff to be, like, several different phases of the battle. I think it'd be pretty cool if in the fight with Shelob, you don't even, like, get to the physical confrontation until, like, phase 3 of the combat. But
yeah, like they had, like, there's a runaway filter or something.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they do it, but anyway, it's something I've been curious about for
desiccated orc carcasses.
Exactly.
The only thing we know of Shelob in the game so far, she's not in the game, is in the launch trailer, or the preview trailer, which had, like, she was in it at the end as, like, pun intended, stinger, to see, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
We haven't seen her yet, so
yeah, it's because I remembered seeing that I'm talking about this, because I'm assuming that we've got to get.
We don't have a sense of scale, though.
Yeah, we've got to get some kind of Shelob action in this expansion, right? Sooner or later.
Yeah, I'm just reminded when you had the High Elf opening during the siege, there was a bit where you and Thranduil are attacked by spiders that the other elves, I think, called Ungolden Titty or something like that. Children of Ungoliant.
Right.
They were pretty big too. So.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. All right, I'm trying to click on the stable master here. Okay, great. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, enough about Shelob and back to architecture. So, hang on, I'm in a tree. Get out of tree. Okay, there we go. So, obviously, we could see from a distance that this was mostly from the Thoracic period. I'm totally using that from now on. I can't resist it. So, thank you. Thank you for that. Who was it who said that again? Because that was so brilliant. Valamoinen. Yeah, thank you, Valamoinen.
Yeah. Right.
So you could tell that this was from the Thoracic period from the beginning, from afar. The question is it so much of the stuff from the Thoracic period we see them choosing sites? Now look over here. Okay, so this stone over here on the side looks different. And,
yeah.
and supporting this brazier, is this a remnant of an older thing, or is it just different stone? Because stylistically it doesn't look that different. The coloring is different. It's not like the same kind of polished marble, the sort of sandy colored polished marble that we get in other places, and the red upright columns that we're getting here.
Yeah, the red jasper columns.
But I don't see any markings on this lowest level. But see, of course it's the lowest level. Look all the way around. It's like the foundations of most of it, not over here, right? This tower over here is, the newer Thoracic marble all the way down to the bottom. But everywhere else, we get this lower layer. And you know what? The knotwork in the horizontal line along the bottom of that older wall doesn't that look the same as what we got on the steps leading up to Sarnur?
Oh yeah, it's the jaggedy, pointy kind of looking.
Yeah.
They like their iron, spiky looking things.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go with the theory and see. Look at the difference between the steps there and those steps that we got in Sarnur, right?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to assume that this is a Thoracic. These are Thoracic stairs and a doorway, and down around the bottom there. So that lower level, that kind of greenish brown layer of older stone, is the remnant, the last remnant of the Dour Handy construction. So this was a Dour Handy site. So once again, what we're seeing, or what I think we're being shown, is that the Longbeards came and they built like everywhere the Dour Hands do. I mean, I don't think we've seen a single place that had only Dour Handy architecture. Right, where it's just a ruin of where the Dour Hands were. The Longbeards have come and taken over like every single site. And that's gotta be annoying. If you're a Dour Hand,
a chip
right?
on their shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's now some of this could be pragmatic in one sense, right? I mean, pragmatic doubly in two different ways. One, in the sense of, why lay whole new foundations for whole new buildings when there are already sound foundations that you can build on, right?
They're flipping it.
They're flipping it. Exactly. They're taking the old Dour Hand property and flipping it. But the other reason the other reason of practicality is that whatever motivated the Dour Hands to want to build in these particular places is also attractive to the Longbeards, right? Whether it be like the harbor, or whether it be the mines, or something, or all of Sarnur, fresh water, exactly. So they're going
in a quartz.
Yeah, they're going to those sites, and they're wanting to be there, for the same reason that the Dour Hands were. Okay, so
have we seen this archway before? This archway looks new to me.
It's a similar shape that we've seen before, but I also don't remember a freestanding arch like that. That's the shape of arches that we've seen often in walls, as I recall, but it's definitely not the normal arch. The normal arches look like this one. See, here's a low one over here. Right, that's what most of the Thoracic arches have looked like, and of course, I really like the word Thoracic because it's like a real word that means something completely different, so that makes it twice as funny, right? It's funny because it sounds like Jurassic, but it's also funny because it sounds like
thorax.
The thorax, right? Exactly. So yeah, for Thoughtless, I agree. This kind of arch, you would think this arch by the gateway here would be very fragile. But again, we've never seen it freestanding before, and it's of course not actually supporting anything.
Makes you wonder if there's supposed to be some sort of open air market, like, or there maybe would be a canopy or some sort of, less permanent structure that would have been connected to it that just was either destroyed or just left off over the years.
Taken down, or yeah, they didn't get there. Is this kind of an unfinished site? It doesn't really.
It doesn't feel finished, or it doesn't feel like it feels different than all the other ones. It just sort of feels.
Right. Well, this part here is clearly just the courtyard, right? Whereas they've got the tower here, sort of tower, which looks finished, and we've got the hall over here, which is set back in the mountainside, and who knows how far back that goes. What
kind of animal would pull this cart? This thing is huge.
My goodness.
It's got the knotwork on the collar.
It's a really big goat. A really big goat.
The Obergoat.
Yeah. Bricktails, exactly. So Bricktails was comparing the building of the Longbeard sites on top of the Dowerhand sites as like the way in which modern roads follow the same paths as old Roman roads so often.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For both of those same reasons. Okay, let's see. Bricktails is also asking what's the engraving on the side of the doorway. This one?
There's a diamond-shaped guy over here.
I think that's the same as this, right?
Yeah. It's metal. There's little rivets around it.
Yeah. Looks almost like a tree, doesn't it?
Or a flower.
Which seems weird.
It looks like a flower in like geometric Polish art or like Eastern European.
Right.
Maybe it's decoration. This is a dwarf attempt at drawing something organic.
Yeah. So those elves like little plants, on their door frames. Well, we can do plants on a door frame here. Here's a completely angular tree.
I can make a stick.
Yeah. It's kind of like a spear, and it's kind of like a lollipop, but you put them together and it's a tree. I don't know. A spear pop. It could be a goblet, I suppose, Bruce. That's possible. It doesn't have an opening. If so, could be like, yeah, no, I don't know.
I mean, the diamonds echo the shape on the doors. So I think it's just supposed to be complementing the shapes that are already on the doors.
Oh, right. You mean all the little like diamonds on the?
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Looks very similar.
Right. Yep.
So maybe it's a mailbox.
Right. Possibly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Have to see what.
The Flower family's house, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's on this door too. So.
Yeah. We can see them on both doors. Yeah. Yeah, it does seem to be part of this overall larger door design with all those diamonds.
Maybe it's a fish. It's a fisher village.
A fish. Well, it looks almost as much like a fish as it does a tree. So, okay. Let's get. I think we've got
we got a lot of those here.
I think we've got one more building before we get to Thorin's Gate, don't we?
And there's a snowman around here somewhere.
A snowman?
Snowman. I think it's up on one of these side cliffs here. It's been a while. It was part of one of the anniversary quests.
Oh, like somebody just made a random snowman on the.
No, it's been here.
Okay.
It's just a little fun Easter egg to find. Question is, who made it?
Not sure I would. Well, maybe if we saw it, we could speculate. We should be able to make a reasonable guess at the provenance of snowmen.
I don't know. There's only so much you can do with pareidolia, and then it's just speculation.
Okay, let's see. So our road, well, I was going to say our road is sort of petering out. No, it's not. You can still see it as sharp lines. It's just got snow on it, so that's fine. We have sort of a track worn down the middle. Whoa, help, can't see anything because of trees. Oops, running into the river because of lag. Making the mistake of trying to adjust my vertical with the mouse, which lag is making awful. Okay.
Oh no.
No problem.
I'll see if I can find the snowman for next time at the very least.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll be back up in this area. So, hey, tell you what, at the end, we'll find this one other ruin place, and then we'll head all the way up to, we'll end at Thorn's Gate so that we can start at Thorn's Gate next time.
Sweet.
There's a house up on the hills?
Yes,
Is there?
I'm at it.
Where?
Yes, there is.
Where is it? Can I see it?
117.5 south, 100.1.
I'm headed there now. I see it.
Okay, so it's north and east of where we are? Okay. All right, well, if there's a house. Is it up that slope? Yeah? Okay.
Wow, this has been here a while.
Okay, so
I found it.
I think I have been up here at least once before. I was hunting something or running away from something or...
Yeah. At least we have a candidate now for who built the snowman.
True.
If someone still lives here.
Let's see. Am I on the right track?
What's your heading?
If you look at the map, it's right between the R and the A and Thrain. It's above it, about halfway up between that and the...
Okay, yeah, I am headed the right way.
Yep, you're getting there.
Yep.
Just keep following this around. Okay, no problem.
Yep.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Okay. Let's see. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
if you
oh,
follow
it's
with
not
me,
a-
you'll see my arrow, and
Yeah,
you'll see
oh,
where
I'm
it
getting
is.
there. I think whoa, good. Hang on. I don't even know what on earth it's talking about. Okay. Sorry, that's my new operating system. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, that was a rock. Okay, from a distance, I thought that was a house. I'm seeing cliff in front of me. Oh, Hunter's Notch. That seems promising.
Yeah, Yep.
Okay. Cliff, and...
Friend enemy.
It's to the north. You can see it.
I can see it?
Yes, up on the hill in the northeast corner.
More up?
Yep.
Yes, it's
Yes.
to the northeast of you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a gap. There you are.
Okay. Oh, there's the house. I see the house. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Ooh, it's a stone house. I wasn't expecting that.
It is, and it's got some stuff on there I haven't seen before.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
this is going to be
You're
a
gonna like this.
richly rewarding little excursion here through the snowy woods, which are very attractive anyway, by the way. I think the snowy woods are very nice.
Yeah.
Now that I
So,
saw
of
that
course,
house from a distance, I'm less confident that I did ever find it before. Maybe I did. I guess I must have done. Are there quests that bring you up here?
I honestly don't recall, but I have the song "Over the River and Through the Woods" in my head right now.
Oh, I have a House Upon the Hill from the Secret Garden
Oh.
musical in my head. As
Oh.
I'm going out here.
I have the three
Ooh.
caballeros stuck in my head.
Okay, that's just not as relevant. Okay.
No.
Wow, this almost looks like an old ruined chapel or something. I know it's not a chapel, but like it kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's it looks like a Nordic sort of early Lutheran church.
Okay. Wow.
Look at the designs on this.
Wow. So it's long beardy in style, but it's ancient.
Yeah. Decrepit. Notice all the stones from the lamps are missing. Like if they were stolen or stopped working or fell out. They don't have those lamps on the outside.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. There is not a trace of anything dour handy about this entire site. And
Yeah.
yet it clearly predates. This is not Thoracic, right? This is
No.
Longbeardish without being Thoracic.
But it's softer than Longbeardish. It doesn't have the harsh angles.
Well, I wonder if that's a product of, just being sort of worn and snow covered. Because a lot of the basic architecture and decoration, like if this looked like nice shiny polished marble, it would look just like all the other houses. And there's no door, is there?
Yeah, at the front.
Is there a point of ingress into this house here?
Not
Did
that
I
we can
just miss
use,
it?
but there's one
Oh
right
yeah,
here.
over here. Okay, there it is. Okay, over here. All right.
It's so intricate.
Yeah. Okay. And we see no kind of nothing pictorial.
No. The fact that it doesn't look like the Dower Hand stuff we've seen indicates that its function is different.
Yeah.
Like this is an actual residence instead of a stronghold or a strategic point.
So, let's see, where are we again? All right. This house is very remote, far from the road, far from, let's see. So I'm looking at the map now, and the primary Dower Hand, so Sarnur is the largest Dower Hand settlement that we've seen.
Yes.
There was other Dower Hand stuff up here in the north, like up in the north of Howthlin.
Yeah.
And in the lowlands. And then around Gondoman. Gondoman was not Dower Handy. It was Elvish, and then 100% Thoracic on top of that, down at Heladul. So we've been seeing, I mean, it was originally up in Howthlin that we began to sort of imagine this being the first age home of the Dower Hands during the time, down here in the southernmost reaches of the Blue Mountains, south of Ossiriand in Old Beleriand. And of course, we still haven't seen Thorn's Gate and that whole area, so we'll get a clearer historical picture of it when we get up there finally.
Yeah.
But So I'm trying to. So we have seen nothing else aged like this. No other Longbeard structure that's been aged like this. I'm trying to.
Yes.
I want to look out at the view.
There might be more at the Vale of Thrain.
There might be, and we'll have to see about that.
Also, you know, it does beg the question: who is the hunter?
Yeah.
For the huntsman's, whatchamacallit?
Oh, right.
Huntsman's cliff, sword, hook, no, crook, whatever it was.
Okay, well, it's dark, but right now I'm looking off towards Sarnur. I'm just trying to figure, like, in the landscape of this whole region, like, what is this spot? I mean, because on the one hand, it's isolated. I mean, it took us a long time to run here from the road, and there's no road leading up to it.
Yeah, you can't really see it from here.
Exactly. But at the same time, although it's isolated, it's not exactly hidden either. And it's a large stone structure out on the edge of this cliff. You could see it from a long ways around if you were looking in the right direction. So it's not secret. And
it's just remote.
Right, exactly. And so I'm imagining, I'm looking at the map, and I'm imagining what a map of First Age Arid Lewin would look like, right? Of this exact region back in the First Age. And we saw some of the elf stuff. There would have been less elf stuff. Like Kellendim wouldn't have been there, presumably back in the older days. There were some of those older things like the vineyard and the party house and stuff like that. Dualon probably. Gondomar, right, which was an elf city earlier at that point. So all that stuff would have been elf stuff. Sarnur was the center, clearly the center of Dourhand power here, right? Yes. The largest city of the Dourhands that we've seen so far. And that's the thing. When I'm looking at the map and where we are right now, Sarnur is kind of opposite, across the valley from it, right?
Quite a ways.
Quite a ways away, but there's a kind of symmetry between this spot and Sarnur. That's the kind of the thing. That's why I wanted to look out and see how much of Sarnur we could see. Of course, it would help if it were daylight. I'd see a little further in the daylight.
So, but what visible, remote, far from the big civilized city, all those things suggest to me a huntsman's lodge.
Yes, but it's Longbeard. See, if this were a Dourhand thing, I would think this was just kind of like some of those isolated spots that we saw from like in Arnor, right? Where you got the main city in Enuminus, and then you've got the like country homes, right? And I would have thought that this was along those kinds of lines. And certainly we saw some remote places, even in the North Downs and stuff, right? Located in similar kinds of spots to this. Even the place that Griffith was just looking at, the Gondorian place that he just came across, in not in Norcrofts actually, but in the Wold, near Elfingels, the northern gate to Elfingels, where the guy that you're supposed to have the horse race with, like, got knocked off his horse. Anyway, that is to say, a remote Gondorian home, which was like a grand home, but off in the wilderness, off in like the, a country manor.
Well put.
I could see this as a country manor, as that kind of a thing, like, where like the, highly introverted Dourhand family lives, not wanting to live anywhere near Sarnur. Except that's not this, right? Because this is
where they summer.
Well, right, except it's not Dourhandy. So no Dourhands summered here, right? I mean, there's
true, but we're not thinking like a dwarf. What's behind us on all sides?
Mountains. But
and if we look at the map and look at the mountains and where they're going, where is that leading us?
Hang on a second. Sorry. Okay. My computer was giving me issues again. Carrying on giving me issues. What is wrong with you? Fool thing. Okay. crying out loud. Okay, there we go. Sorry, apologies. Looking back at the mountains. Okay, so it backs up against the mountains, sure. But it doesn't. It's still detached.
Unless it's got a lower level that's connected.
Well, that's certainly true. Can't argue with that. But still, my point is, this is Longbeardy, and it's old. So,
Yes.
if we imagine that this was a first or second age Longbeard construction, we have never seen any evidence of anything like that here.
Yeah.
Or anywhere around here. This is the only non-thoracic Longbeard construction we've seen anywhere in the Arid Luin yet, that I recall. So, in fact, you could even say this is the first time that there has been any evidence of any Longbeard presence in this region back in the First Age.
That's very true. And notice there's been no improvements made on it, Dourhand or Thoracic or otherwise.
Yeah, this seems to have just been abandoned. I wish we could get in and see what the inside, like how abandoned the inside looks.
Yeah.
And what we can see from, like, you know, furniture and other internal constructions. But anyway, so
Someone made the suggestion this might have been, what was it? Might have been maybe Thorn's house or something when he came out here.
maybe, but see, again, it looks older than anything that we see, right? So
Yeah.
Fourth Dauntless is pointing out that the knotwork around the top of the building looks kind of dour handy. I agree. It's like those knots we were looking at on the steps. That is true, but there are several elements that I think. Okay, so, like, first of all, the primary things that have marked the old dour handy constructions have been like the stained glass type thing, right? The much more intricate details, even things like flowers and stuff. I mean, like, much more, almost like elvish work. Not quite like elvish work, but almost like elvish work.
You don't say that to their face anyway.
Right. Yeah, and the whole thing really has the shape of a Longbeard
Yeah.
house.
It's just missing those spires. It doesn't have the usual spires we see on everything.
Yeah,
Either
no, it doesn't.
the big brass one, or the jasper, or the glowstone. It doesn't have any of that.
Okay. So my theory is, especially since we've been instructed to associate this place with hunting in some way or other, right? Maybe this is an old outpost. Like, so the Longbeards did not live here back in the First Age, but they visited, right? They traveled through here and might have, there might have been some, like a Longbeard family that used to come and hunt here sometimes, and so they built this house, and they built it far away from this is not like on the doorstep of Sarnur, right? I mean, it's far away.
It's not like Thrassi's Lodge where it's on the road.
Exactly. It's not like Thrassi's Lodge. It's set way back then. And of course, Thrassi's Lodge was of Dunedain construction, as we saw, which is a whole another thing. But that's the only thing. That's the only thing I can think here, right? Is that this is an old relic of like. So okay, all right. Theory. That then leads to a deeper theory. So what if, therefore, there were a family of Longbeards who used to come to this area to hunt and had built this house, right? So this was the only outpost of the Longbeards, the only place where any of the Longbeards would come and stay when they were traveling through this region. Therefore, when Thorin said, hey, we don't have anywhere to live because our place got eaten by a dragon, and they set up in Dunlin first, and then that doesn't pan out so well because dragons, again, within the Lotro world, they're like, okay, can we think of anywhere we can live that doesn't involve dragons? And then somebody's like, yeah, well, there's this place, there's this area up in the Blue Mountains. There's still some other dwarves there, but they're kind of losers. And anyway, we used to be up there sometimes. And so they're like, okay, let's go back and settle down there. So this is evidence that there was a Longbeard presence in the area, even though they didn't dominate. And that could also help to sort of explain them deciding to move in and feeling like they have, if not a claim exactly, a kind of, familiarity here.
Foundations, at the very least.
Yeah. That.
Okay, I definitely think we're going to learn a little more when we get to
Thorn's Gate.
Thorn's Gate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, okay, so it's very late now. I wasn't planning to come. I didn't even know that this place existed, so that's delightful. I'm not going to run all the way over to Thorn's Gate just for the sake of being there. But next time, remind me, Valori, we will start at Thorn's Gate next time.
Sounds good.
Okay, because that's what we'll be right in the environs of Thorn's Gate for next time. All right.
That's amazing.
Very good. Well, we will sign off here. Thanks everybody for joining us this week. Really fun class. We finished chapter 1. We got back to our regular field trip routine. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. So next week is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I am going to have this class as normal on Tuesday night. I am pretty sure. So, okay. Total disclosure, my mother-in-law is coming next week. She arrives on Monday, so I am reasonably confident that I will have the liberty to broadcast as usual on Tuesday night, but there is a non-zero chance that my schedule might change without warning to myself. So we will see. So
been there.
Yeah. That I shall be flexible with my mother-in-law's visit, but barring any unexpected mother-in-law related activities, I will see you guys next Tuesday and certainly the Tuesday after that in any case. So thanks everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for joining me on this epic exploration of The Lord of the Rings and of Standing Stone's video adaptation of Tolkien's story. If you are having even half the fun I'm having on this journey, I hope you will consider supporting the project by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.